Well, here's a video I never thought I would make. A week ago, I uploaded a video reviewing Since Memories, and apparently this one channel named Dan's Distillery liked it so much he decided to literally take all the points I made and rewrite them as his own. You know, as a Memories Off series fan, I'm actually quite curious to know what the reception will be once people get their hands on it. So it was very disappointing to see that the first quote-unquote Western review would simply be a rerun of my own. I don't want to make this video overly long since this really isn't a YouTube drama channel, but in this video I will compare clips from both videos to show my point. I'm guessing he's not going to mind me using his video, considering he took basically everything from mine. Anyway, let's begin. In the first part, he is basically repeating what I said about the series, but I actually don't mind this that much. I know the Memories Off series isn't that well known in the West, and that first section of the video was made in part to better contextualize why this game is important. He gets the hiatus time frame wrong though.
After a long hiatus following Memories of Innocent F in 2018.
After the 7th entry, Yubikiri no Kyoku, and its fan disc, the series effectively went on a brief hiatus until 7 years later. The next minute and a half, he's kind of repeating what the promotional material says, but I will give it a pass. It's not like he's completely wrong, and it feels unique enough. At the very least, in my review, I jumped into the criticisms faster, so let's look at those next. The first actual point he makes is how certain parts of the mystery are repeated across different character routes.
The intertwined routes make for a multifaceted story, but they also occasionally feel repetitive, as certain plot elements overlap across different character arcs.
As far as the mystery aspect of their routes, this was another part that I thought was slightly better than what I remembered, even if it wasn't exactly intricate. However, I got the feeling that the two routes shared too many plot elements. While it's understandable, he then makes a comment about how some interactions feel melodramatic, which again, it was something I mentioned in my review, but more importantly, it's what comes after, when he begins to point out the issues with each character, which needless to say, are the same that I had. Such as how poorly the cast often treats the protagonist.
Junior is often treated harshly or manipulated by those around him. While these dynamics are meant to showcase the character's personal growth, they can detract from the overall emotional impact, making it harder to connect with the cast.
I can't say I deeply cared for them. In retrospect, I can see that this was largely due to their treatment of the protagonist during the common route. It often felt like they were either taking advantage of him, even going as far as being manipulative, or went to the opposite extreme and berated him for no good reason. And now he goes into the characters, and this part is basically a one-to-one copy from what I said in my review.
Chihaya, the more serious of the group.
Also, Dan, if you had played the game, you would know Chihaya is not the most serious of the group. In fact, it's the opposite.
Grows on the player over time, particularly during the final stretch of her route, where her development becomes more engaging.
Chihaya, on the other hand, was initially a character I found hard to like due to her personal disposition. It was only around the last stretch of her route when I started to root for her.
Azusa, another key character, shows the most believable growth, evolving from a hostile and distant figure to someone deeply connected to Junior's journey.
She's the character that showed the most believable character growth, despite starting rather hostile towards the protagonist.
Chunyu, the upbeat and justice-driven heroine, provides some of the most refreshing moments in the game.
She was very upbeat while also having a strong sense of justice, which occasionally led to arguments between the characters. While these were at times slightly melodramatic, I thought her frankness was a nice breath of fresh air.
However, her storyline, which initially hints at a different mystery, eventually feels underdeveloped compared to the others.
Her route, on the other hand, was a bit of a disappointment. The game initially hinted at a focus on a different mystery, but to me it felt that her storyline eventually derailed into a secondary route for Yuriko.
Yuriko, on the other hand, suffers from a lack of depth. Her constant lying and self-centered behavior makes her difficult to empathize with.
Yuriko was yet another character that didn't really click with me due to her constant lying and generally egoistic attitude.
Finally, Hinata is an abrasive character who struggles to find her place in the narrative.
And finally, there's Hinata in most of her scenes, but she struck me as such an unpleasant character. Bad thing, but just makes her addition as a main heroine all the more puzzling. I know that. He then proceeds to talk about the presentation and would you know it, he makes the same points I did in my video. Regarding the music, he mentions how some tracks make references to older games, something you could only know if you had played them or if, you had watched my video.
The music elevates the emotional and cinematic experience with tracks that subtly reference previous entries in the series.
Which tracks, Dan? Which tracks? Anyway, he also includes a section where he talks about the connections of Synth's memories with the rest of the series, saying that it spoils some moments from previous entries, just like I did in my video. Once again, it's impossible to know this unless you've actually played them, and shall I remind you that they are still untranslated?
A key question for Synth's memories of the Starry Sky is whether it can stand alone for newcomers.
That brings up the question, can you play this game without having played the previous entries in the series?
While the game is technically a soft reboot set 10 years after the original series, it still carries deep ties to its predecessors. Shin, a recurring character from the previous games, plays a significant role in this entry, and there are subtle nods to earlier titles in the soundtrack and locations. These references will...
By the way, when he says that Shin has a significant role, that's another thing he got wrong. In my video, I said that in other entries, returning characters had significant roles. Shin in Synth's memo, however, doesn't have that much screen presence in comparison. But it's the point about the spoilers from previous games that feels even more obvious.
Furthermore, certain scenes can spoil key moments from earlier memories of games, which might be disappointing for players hoping to explore the series in full later on.
There are also some scenes where Shin reminisces on his past, essentially spoiling some plot events of previous entries as well. At any rate, the relevance of these spoilery callbacks depends entirely on whether you intend to eventually play the rest of the series or not. To his credit, he makes one single unique criticism that wasn't in my video.
Of the Starry Sky also has a very slow start, which I found to be a bit of a struggle to connect with the characters at first.
This basically just tells me that he played the game for perhaps 30 minutes and called it a day, which would also explain why his review is made almost entirely of trailer footage rather than his own. The following part is simply the conclusion, which is just a rewrite of my own, but you get the idea. At the time of making this video, my review has far more views than his, but subscriber-wise, he's far bigger than I am. I can also see he's been posting reviews on a nearly daily basis, making me think this isn't the first time he's stolen one from other small, vulnerable YouTube channels. So Dan, if you are watching this, please take down that Synth's Memories video, as well as any other review you didn't originally write. At any rate, if you want to watch an actual review of the game, I will leave the link to my video down in the description. Don't worry, there's no plagiarism in that one. Anyway, I hope you guys have a nice day. See you next time. Marin out.